All right, so today we are going to be talking about the display property, and as from next class, we should start working on something based on what we've known already from HTML and CSS. Even though we still need to talk about this position and transform are there, but they are not really needed right now for some stuff that you'll be doing there like that. So, and what is display property? This is how you can use this property to control how your elements are being laid out on the page. So, for example, I told you that we have an inline element and we have the block element. I told you that all the inline, as you can see on this button, they are side by side by default. They occupy the space of the content that is inside them. So the content is small, then that's button is going to occupy that small space, and the button is really long, there you see that the button is going to occupy the space of the content that you have inside it. And what if you want to change the display that all these elements used to have by default? So you can use the display property. So as you can see, we have the inline, we have the block. This is not all. We have a lot of display properties that you can use, but these are the major one that we're going to be using like that. For example, now going to this block and just type the display property, you see that it will come out with different values that you can pass into. So you can display as table, you can display as list items, you can display as inline block. As you can see, there's a lot of list item, which is that li. So those are the stuff that some of these things do behind the scene. When you call those tags, they will put some display, or they will bring out some property behind the scene, and you start seeing things displaying the way you want. And as you can see, that we have a lot of display properties that you can use, but the major one, as you can see, this block, we have the flex, and we have this grid, and we have this inline, or sometimes you might want to use this inline block or inline flex like that. But once you understand flex and you understand inline and you understand block, all this other one, you just like you are combining the two of them, or the two words together like that. And what is block? I told you, this is going to make sure that the content occupy the entire line where you have the stuff. And as you can see inside this display block, all the button by default, they are inline. But if you want to change it, you can talk to the button that is inside that display box, the class with display block box. So we want to change the display for whatever that used to be there. By default, it is inline. So if I save this one, you see that nothing is changing because that's what is there before. But now I can change it to block. So which means each one of them, they are going to occupy them. As you can see now, they've moved to a separate line because each button are now occupying the entire line that you have. So they won't allow anything to go side by side with them like that. And we can actually use width of 100% like this. And I know that have you talked about this percentage? No, we've not. So what is percentage units? I know we've talked about the rem, but sometimes you actually need percentage. So percentage units are really useful when you want to change something on the child relative to whatever the parent is having for that particular value. So here, what we are saying is that the width of this box is going to be 100% of whatever the width of the parent is using. Anytime you use percentage, it will look at the same property on the parent, and whatever value that is there, it will not take that percentage that you have there. So since the box, this and the box here, this red is getting here, and we said it's going to be 100% of that, so it's going to take everything that is there. But what if we said the width of the box is going to be 300 pixels? So by the time it will calculate this 100%, it will now be 100% multiplied by whatever this, which is means that box too is going to have 300 pixels. So once you save, you see that it's adjusting based on that parent, not that it's calculating on its own. So percentage is useful anytime you need to depend on the parent of that element. And here now, I can just change it to 50% like this. You see that it will now be taking half because it will calculate 50% of whatever the weight of the parent. So it will go to the parent, look at that same property where you are using that percentage, it will multiply that percentage by that number. Whatever you get, most of the time you don't care. What you care about, you want it to take percentage of that stuff. So you now mention the percentage that you want. So if I want this thing to always cover 70% of the parent, I don't care about the final value. What I care about is 70% of that parent. So here now, you can just use 70%. So no matter the weight of the box, it will always calculate 70% of it. But you see that this one is not changed because we said it is 300. But this one too, if I give it, maybe it is now 60% of its own parent too. No, that one too is inside its own parent. So when that parent of that one too change, as you can see, it's this is not the percentage. Again, this one too will calculate its own value because this one is depending on this one too is depending on body. So once whatever they are depending on change, they will recalculate, and that's why it is called relative unit because it's depending on something. Once that thing is depending on change, it will recalculate the value. But what is it depending on? So we talk about the rem that is depending on the font size of the HTML. So whatever the font size of the HTML, that's what you always multiply by rem. So which means here now if I use 70 rem, what we are saying is that I want to multiply this 70 by whatever the font size of the HTML. And by default, I told you that it is 16 px. So which means it will multiply this 70. And that's why you see that it's giving us this. I have this extension that do conversion from pixels to rem or rem to pixels depending on which one that I type. So if I type pixels now, like that, it's supposed to do the conversion for me. And as you can see beside it, it is the same thing as 4.375 rem like that. But I'm not using rem, I'm using percentage here because I want it to depend on where it's coming from, not that it's standing on its own like that. So that's what the percentage all about. I know I mentioned the other one, which is VW. This one too is percentage, but I told you that this one is not depending on the screen. When you're using VW, you're calculating percentage of this entire white area, the width of it. So which means if I save this one and you say that it will move more than the parent, because now it's not depending on parent, not depending on parent again, it's depending on the white. So if you want it to depend on the parent, it will be percentage. So it will be calculating percentage based on the parent, where it's coming from. But if you want it to depend on the screen, then you use VW, depending on whether you want the horizontal or the, so VH, that's the height one, then the VW, so that's all about percentage. But that's not the major thing here. I'm just using it to explain what this thing is all about. And as you can see now, we have this thing getting full inside the box. But what if you don't display it as a block and we save it like this? As you can see, it's coming. But there is some property or there is some display you can use later on that they don't have their own. They can't just shift whatever that is beside it out of the way. You are going to see that one later on. But for now, a block allows you to place content side by so to place them on top of each other or to occupy the line where that element is being placed, no matter the size of the element. So if I don't increase the size here and just save it, you see that none of them will go side by side because they are now a block element. So no matter the size of the content that is there, they will only occupy that or they will occupy that entire line, not just the space of the content that is inside it like that. And if you want any element that is in block before, you can change it to inline like this, which is going to make sure that they are placed or they occupy only the space of the content that is inside it like that. But we have another type of display here, which is something we'll be using a lot later on, which is known as this flex. Just like its name, it is flexible. It allows you to kind of work with parent, like it works based on parent and children. So it's not that, here now we want to talk to the button. We actually go inside the button and talk to it. But flex, most of its property come from the parent, but it will be affecting what is inside the stuff. And what is flex? Just like the name, is a flexbox property that allows us to arrange content inside the container. So for example, here now, we have all these buttons. What if I want to place them on top of each other and maybe later on I want to change my mind, I want to place them side by side. But you know, when you place them side by side, I still want to be able to control them directly from this parent by placing them in particular area inside the box. For example, here, let me remove this one. Save. Currently, you can see that the box, it already full the entire container like that. But now, what we can do is to now display this one as a flex like that. When you're dealing with flex, is the parent that you're going to display as flex, but it will be controlling what is inside that parent. So when you're dealing with flex, we have something known as a flex container, and we have the flex item. So anything that you're displaying as flex, that's the container, which is the parent. Then whatever that is inside it directly, that's what we call flex item. And please, it's only going to affect what is under it directly. And what I mean by it directly here is that if you look at this button now, can you see anything in between from this div before you get to this button? Did you pass through any other element? No. So this is what we call direct. But if you look at this one now, this one is not direct. So I have this div. This div is direct under that div. But this P is not direct under this P. Even though it is inside, it is not direct, because before you can get to that P, you have to pass through this div. This P is direct to this, but it's not direct to this one, because look at it, look at the arrangement from here. As you can see that there is something in between them. But if you click on this one, you see that that button, it's just coming from this one. So this is what we call direct. There's a way of selecting this in CSS. So that you say you only want to select the direct one, not the one that is deeply nested inside. So the one that you're not passing through another element to get to it, you can select it instead. And that's how flex works, because whatever you are going to be doing with this container later on, it will only affect the element that is direct under it. It will not touch this one. It will only touch this div or this button, but it will not touch this P here. So if you want to touch the P, then that means you have to display this one too as flex. And with this now, you can use it to arrange elements on the page anyhow you want. And you can use it to do something like flex layout there, because with flex, it allows you to place content on top of each other, or it allows you to place them side by side. And you can even mix them inside each other to form some complex layouts that you want like that. So let me just go to the image so that can you see all this thing now? So you can use flex to do this. So that this one, it's occupying this entire line. These three follows, then these two now follow. So with flex, you can do it. And we have another one too, which is known as grid. That one make it easier for us to do something like this, where you can arrange this in column and row. Because you can see now you have your column and you have your row. But when you only need one direction there, flex is really, really powerful with that, because it only works with one direction at a time. But if you want it to work with two, you have to be putting one flex inside another flex. But with grid, you don't need to be doing that. It's easier to do with grid. But this is flex, and some of the thing it can do for you like that. Can you see? We can change the direction, we can align, we can justify the stuff. I am going to see all of them today. So when you display any element as flex, it doesn't change itself. It will only work on what is inside it. Anytime you're dealing with flex, anytime you display any element as flex, that element, we call it container. While the content that is inside it, we call them items. So everything that is under it, that is directly under it, they are known as items or flex item. While that element itself is known as container or the flex container here like that. And by default, when you display any element, look at it before it. This is what we have currently before we display it as flex. But once I save this, what did I add to this one? Okay, let me remove, or let me even leave it so that you can see some of this thing. So item last like this. So save first so that we can see it on the screen. And the reason it's going to next line is because it's inside div. Div is always on its own. But now let's display as flex. You see what will happen now. So once we display as flex, can you see now? Everything, they are now side by side. So when you display as flex, flex has something known as a direction. So all the items that is inside it, how do you want to direct them? Do you want them to be side by side, or you want them to be on top of each other. And by default, direction is known as row, which means it's going to place them. And as you can see that this button too, they have been stretched, so you are going to see all the properties using behind the scene to do that, because by default it will try to stretch them so that they are of equal height, but it can tell you that no, you don't want that. Let everything to be at the top, or to be at the center, or to be down. And that's what you are seeing, like what this thing is showing here. Like that, if you look at the diagram here, you see that it can be at the top, can be at the center, can be at the bottom, but this is what it's doing currently, which is going to make sure that it cover up the entire stuff. So it's known as stretch. The same thing can happen on the horizontal too. So it can be by the left, which is what is happening currently. It can be at the center, and at the same time it can be at the end, or you can put some space in between them, or you can do this other spacing like this. So you're going to see them. We're going to do all these things like that, because when you're working on your design, some of these things are going to come outside there, and you need to use all this property to be able to achieve that. One of the first one that I'm going to explain here is known as a gap. So when you display container as flex, can you see it will remove any space in between them, like whatever space you used to have before, like the normal way you type them without this flex, you see that all of them will just arrange the way you put it and the spacing, whatever stuff. But once you display as flex, all those space will be removed, so you won't have any space at all. Let me start this div too, so that we can see what is going on there. So display box, the div that is there, I want this one to have background color of yellow like that. Yeah, you can see that one too, so it will check them like that. But before this, without this one, as you can see the way it's displaying. But once you display as flex, it will make sure that each one of them, they are side by side. Again, it's aligned, like it's justified. We call this, we will explain that later. It move everything to the edge, to the left side like this. But what if you want to give space in between each one of them? That's where the gap comes in. But this gap is a shorter property that can help you to change row and column gap. Right now, we only have column. So column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5, and column 6. When you're in row direction, is column you'll be counting. And when you're in column direction, is row you'll be counting like that. So here now, we need a space. So once you use this gap, it can change both the row and column at the same time. So the first value is for row, the second value is for column. Or if you give it one value, it will use it for row and column. Just like padding, that it can change multiple sides at the same time. So once you just give it one value, it will use it for both of them. For example, if I use 2 RAM here, which is 32 pixels like that, so save, and as you can see, it's going to put this paper. Something is happening here. Can you see? One of the item is going outside. Now I told you how to undo something that is going outside. So if you don't want it to go outside, we can use overflow. First of all, we can use hidden. So anything that is going outside, cut it out. Or we can just do auto. So which means if it's going outside, it's going to give us this scrolling bar. But that's not what we want, because these flex actually come with other properties too that you can use. And this one is known as flex wrap. So by default, when you mention any direction there, that's the side is going to place all the item. It doesn't care whether it's going outside of that container or not. It will always make sure that everything is that single line. But look at it now. Some of them are trying to go outside, or they are even going outside. So you can talk to it that any other item that cannot take up that space, so just wrap to next line. Just like the way our normal text used to behave. Not like this P now or any of the content. As you are moving, you see that they are going to next line. Like this now, we only have pages on the next line. So let me redo this thing again. As you can see now, it's now web page. That is, so once I expand it, as you can see, everything on. So we can do the same thing too with the item that is inside flex container. So if there is no space to accommodate that line, so instead of all of you going outside, because they are not going outside, as you can see, they are now outside of the container. So instead of you going outside, just wrap to next line. So if there is no space, wrap to next line. But if there is space, just go back to your. So we can use this flex wrap, and by default it is no wrap. So which means nothing will wrap to next line. It will just make sure that it is on that particular direction, that we call it direction, that you are using. And by default, direction is row. You are going to see how to change direction too soon now. So once I save this one, you see that nothing is happening. But if you want it to wrap, just remove the no there like that. So this one now is to make sure that the remaining stuff is not going to. Can you see now there is that row and column gap there like that. So this is where you can see the row and column gap. And because I'm using the same value, it's just going to apply. But if I use one rem here, so which means the gap here will be one rem, while the one in the the row one is 2, because the first number is for row. So once I save it, as you can see, the column one is 1, while the row on is 2. So if assuming we have another row again, you are going to see that it's using 2 rem for the row gap. And if you use one value, or let me even reduce it, maybe like 0.25 like this, you see it's only changing that row on. The first number is for the, or the first value is for the row, the second value is for the column. But if they have to use the same number, you don't need to start typing them again and again. Just use that one single value and it's going to apply it for the two of them like that. But I will not be wrapping the stuff like this, because I want to talk about another flex property there. Another one that we have is flex direction, which is what you can use to change the direction of the items inside the container. So let me increase the space so that you can see this in action. So currently it is row. When you don't change it, this is what is going to use by default. But we don't want it to be side by side. We want them to be on top of each other. So we can use column like this. So and once I save, as you can see now, it's going to place them on top of each other like this. So the same thing here too, assuming the height, no, the height used to adjust automatically. Like the thing will just adjust based on the content that is inside it. But assuming you limit the height, things will start going outside of the container, because I want to do that because we need it for some stuff. So height is going to be 300 pixels like this. So as you can see, they are not up to that. But what if I use something that is less? As you can see now, is now going outside. So we can bring our wrap again. So anything that is trying to go outside, just wrap, so that so you need to go to next line, not that you have to go outside of the screen. So if you don't want anything to go outside, you are going to wrap the stuff. But I'm going to use a bigger number because I want to use this thing for something else. Let me use 400. I don't want it to go outside of the screen. 300. I want the thing to so I want it to still be showing on the screen. So again, apart from this column and row, we actually have row reverse and column reverse. So when you use row, which is what is there by default, you see that as you can see that it has stretched, because it will always stretch it to cover that container. But we're going to solve all this one soon. Look at it now. Everything starts like the way you arrange. So the first one, the second one to the third. But what if you want to reverse it? Like the last will be the first. The first item will now, like it will just reverse the stuff. So we can now use row reverse. So once this thing is saved in your code, you don't need to do that. It's the CSS that is going to handle it for you. In your code, everything is still starting from body 1, body 2, and so forth like that. But the way you want to display on the screen, you want to reverse it, because there is some time later on small screen, what you have on the left, or this is what we have on big screen, you have content by the left, and you now have image by the right. But when you now get to the mobile, you want the image to come first and the content to be second. There's no way you'll be going to your code to check. So this thing can do it for you, and you are going to be seeing this thing a lot on some so you are going to see it a lot on some site like that. They do something like this, and what they are doing there is just to change or to reverse the stuff. Most of the time on desktop, all the design or all the site, content is always by the left, image is always by the right. Then when you now look at it on the mobile, image will now go to the top, and this one, not that you are duplicating the element, it's just one. But with the help of this our property now, the flex, you can change the direction and even reverse it if you need to do that like that. So going on, as you can see, these people, they did not change their own, the way it's being arranged, but you see that direction change. Before it was a row, Then when you get to small screen, then I change it to column. So with flex, it's kind of easier to do this in. Without flex, you have to duplicate the element. You have the one that is for mobile, you have the one for the desktop. So on mobile, you hide the one for desktop. Then on the desktop, you hide the one for mobile. But with this, you don't need to duplicate the element. It's still one element you use. What you just be doing is to be changing the direction based on your design there. So it all depends on your design that you are following like that. So going back into our file like this, so you can see they are now being reversed. If you don't want this one too, we can use the other one like that. So column, you know, they will stack on top of each other. But we don't want it to be like that. We want to reverse it. So this one now will go up. This one will come down like that. So save, and as you can see, that's reverse what normally used to happen. Like the down one will go up, then the up one will come down like this. So if you want it in that way, but I'm going to leave it as row for now because we want to do something now, which is how do we shift this element, because most of the time you don't want them to just stretch like this. You actually want them to be at the center of that place, not that is stretching out. So flex 2 is giving us another property, which is this align items, because it comes in two ways, and we have the justify content. And the way they are working is depending on the direction you are using. So you need to understand them and when you need to call them based on your direction. So when you are using the row direction, when you are using row direction there. So justify will be working for the horizontal, while the align will be working for vertical. So when you are working in row direction, justifier is talking about how you are moving all the item on the horizontal, while the align is talking about how you are moving them in a vertical direction like that. But once you change this direction now to column, then it will reverse the two. When you are in row, justify is horizontal, align is vertical. But once the direction changes to column, then align will now be horizontal, justify will now be, because you know this is how it is. You know this is justify, or you switch it, so that one too it will follow it. Not that it's always, or when you change the stuff, then that one too will follow the change, because normally it's supposed to be side by side. But once you change the direction to column, that one too, justify will go up there, then the one that is up to will now go to the horizontal side. So you should know which one to call based on the direction, because if you call them the time you are not supposed to call it, it will be giving you, it will work, but you know it will be doing it at the wrong side or the direction that you don't want it like that. So I'm going to be using justify right now because I want to deal with the horizontal one like that. Or let me do with the line first because we have more space in the container like that. And if you want to say the other one, I just need to reduce the number of content we have inside it so that we can see it will be working, but because there is no space, because it's work based on the space that is inside the container. So I can see that now we have more space, so we can start seeing this stuff in action. So here now, let me disable this one for now and just use this. So for the justify content, it have this value known as a flex start or flex end. This is one of the values there. So when you say flex start, which is what is using by default when you are in horizontal, that's flex start. It means everything is only starting from the edge here. That one, if its direction is row, if you reverse it, the opposite is your start. You know, it will change the direction. So if the this one is being reversed, so this thing will be different. No? Start will now be on the right. But since we are dealing with normal row, we did not reverse it. So this is start like that, because it's only depending on that. Again, too, if you want to move everything to the end, so what you can just do is flex end, all of them, not just one item. It will make sure that all the content that is inside that container that is direct, they are always at the end. By default, they are always by the left, which is flex start like that. If you did not change the stuff to reverse, if you change it to reverse, you know it will reverse the stuff. So if I use start, you see that everything will just stack to this side. But what if you want them to be at the center? Because look at this side, that side we still have. So let me, what's wrong with this Jumia site? Reset. How come their site is not big like this? Let me go to their own here. Is still it. They have a lot of content here, so it will not be okay for now. So let me come to this side. Even this one too is flex. We are going to be using later. As you can see, this content is here, and all this one they are by this side. You are going to see how to do this one too. Yes, yeah, you can. That one is normal. We are going to talk about that one soon too, but it's going to be when we're talking about responsiveness, because you want to do some stuff based on the screen you are working on. That's responsiveness. So we're going to talk about that once we are done with our first design. So that second design is what I'm going to use to explain that. But that's something that I'm looking for that I want to show. Like even all of them, like this one too is not. I think our this thing. Let me go there. Where are you? Where are you? So penny. No. Should be penny should be part. Yeah, there's it. So reload again. Let me see. Do we use, yeah? So can you see the way things? So that this one is here. All this one they are the center, while this one is by this side. So this one too is using the flex properties here to achieve something like this. So instead of us moving it to the right, all of them to the right, or move all of them to the left, you can actually move all of them to the center, or move or just give the space in between them. So yeah, let me just go back to the page. So now what we can do is just to move everything to center like that. So center, and you see that it will look at that container, wherever the center, it will make sure that everything are centered there. If it is one item, you see that that is the only one that will be at the center. If it is 10, to make sure that all of them, they are, as you can see, but once there is no space again, then nothing will happen. That's the reason why I have to remove some of them, so that you can, because all this center this in flex start, flex end, they are depending on the space that is inside that container. So if there is no space, there's nothing to shift. The only one that can force this thing is gap. So gap doesn't care whether there is space or no space. That one will find a space, but it is in between them like that. But this one now, it work based on the space that is left in the container. I can see that my height is really much. So since I have enough height, the same thing too, I can talk about a line. So yeah, we can do flex start, which follow the same thing. You can see everything is now at the top like that, or flex end, which means it will take everybody. No, you see now, it's not dealing with vertical one. But once I change direction, the arrangement too will be different. So if it is column now, what is aligned before is now, so that's how it works. So we have row like this, and here you can move it to center too, like that, which is something we're going to be doing a lot. So it's center on the vertical side, but the horizontal one too, it is at the center. Now we can move content to the center of the box. Normally, without flex, everything will be here, like that. So removing flex, once you remove flex, every other property will not work again. No. So they are depending on flex. So all this gap, flex, direction, justify, whatever stuff, you can only use them when you display as flex. If you don't display as flex, nothing will work. So one, as you can see, it goes back to that place like that. But what if you want to utilize this empty space that I left? We don't just want to move all of them to the edge or something. We want to distribute the space in between the content. So we can use this other value, like we have this one, which is going to be space around, space between, and space evenly. The one we use most here is this space between. Let me remove this padding so that you can see, because I've already had padding, that's why it looks like there is more space at the edge. There is no space here because of my padding. So here now, if you want to distribute the remaining space, because from here now to here, this is extra space. So we want to distribute it among all these items. So we can use this space around. And what the space around is going to do is that the space at the edge will be equal, but not the same thing as the space inside them. So this is a space, this space will be here, the space will be distributed here, the space will be distributed here. So all those spacing inside, they will be equal. The same thing too, the space will be at the edge, another space will be at this edge, but they are not going to be the same thing. So the edge will be the same space, the inside one too will be the same space, but they are not equal to the edge space. The spacing at the edge is not going to be the same thing as the one in between the stuff. There will be space around everything, but they are not going to be the same. So the one on the left edge and the one on the right edge, they will be the same thing. Again, too, the spacing will be inside. All those inside one will be equal. All those edge one too will be equal. But the edge will not be the same thing as what is inside them. So once this thing is saved, you see, can you see that the spacing at the edge are the same at the edge, but the inside now they are the same, but they are not the same thing as the edge one. This one now, it will make sure that the spacing in between them are equal, but it's not the same thing as the one on the edge. But if you want the space to be equal everywhere, that's where the space evenly comes in. So this evenly will make sure that that space is distributed like around everything, including the edge. All of them, we have the same things, ranging from here to here to here to here to here. It will calculate everything based on the spaces that you have. Or if I increase, as you can see, it's going to distribute that space based on whatever you have left in the container, and it's going to be equal across. So the one at the edge and the one inside will be the same thing. But when you say space around, it will give space, but the one in between will never be the same thing as what you have at the edge. But what if you don't have, you don't need the spacing at the edge at all? I don't care, but because later on, you know, we are going to be applying padding. Huh? What? Yeah, I'm talking about the horizontal one. No. That's a property. It's just one property. So it's not short term. So the same thing too, you can do it for this one, but no, we don't have multiple items on the, this one I really have one line. So you will not be seeing anything like space between, space around, because there is no other content beside it. So your eye will not see that something. But assuming we have another line again under it, maybe something is going outside now. For example, here, let me do it. Let me move this thing down. Okay, let me activate the other one so that we can have enough box. As you can see now, some of them are going outside, but instead of it going outside, what we can do here is to just wrap them. Can you see here too? Like that. So what we can just do here is just to do flex start like that, which is going to move everything to the side like that, or you can even change the other one like that. But don't let us do too much, because what is time? Yeah, so here we have the flex, and for this one, I don't want it. Let me remove this one again so that we don't have too much of content inside the box. All right, so that it will be easier to see like that. So yeah, we have this space. No, I don't want this one to go like that. Go back to the center like this. Then we have another one, but it will not be visible like that with this small space. So let me increase it so that we have enough space like this. So we have another one which is space between. So this one is putting all the spacing in between, nothing at the edge. When you say space evenly, you know there will be space at the edge, space inside. When you use space around, space at the edge, space inside. But when you say space in between, space between, nothing at the edge. It will only put the space in between, because, and that's what you'll be using most of the time. As you can see, nothing at the edge. Everything is now inside. And this is what we are going to be using most of the time, because we want to control the spacing at the edge with padding, but you can do anything you want. We like let it handle the inside one. You can use the other one too, but most of the time, when the browser increase, it will start adding unnecessary space that we don't want at the edge, because it's depending, the spacing is like whatever it's going to do is depending on what you have left. So if you now have enough space, it will just be creating things that we don't want. So instead of it doing it for us, we want this thing to always be one REM every time. So which is whatever we use here as our padding, that's what is always going to use. So whether whether I have this small screen or I have big screen, that spacing at the edge is always the same thing, because I'm using my own padding and it's not changing at all. So whether you're on small screen or you're on a big screen, is still remaining that one, but the one inside is changing, and that's what you see that is being used here, like that. So one item is here, another one is at the center, and now so padding is this edge one. But you might be thinking, why is this stuff not having space here in between all this one? Consider all this one, they look like it's one item. So what is happening there is that they are inside, they are nested element. Now I told you it doesn't change what is netted inside, it only affects. So let me show you what I'm talking about, like that. So let me show you what I'm talking about, because it's very important you understand this thing. So let me move this in between, like this, and let me just leave only two. Then in between this one, let me just add more p inside it, like this. So this one should be, or let me just say item 1, this one should be item 2, and this one should be item 3, like that. So save, go back to the page. Can you see that it's not touching all this one? So when they are not the part of the item under that one, it will not touch it. So if you want something to happen to all this one too, we have to talk to their own parent too separately. So if you want those one to now to be side by side, what we just need to do is to go to that their own container. So here too, we display as flex, like that. You see that whatever you're not doing with this thing now, it will only affect what is inside it too. It will not do anything other thing. So gap. Huh? Yes. So it one item can act as a container to other items. So this one now is item to this parent, but it is parent to this other one. So all these items now, they are under this. They are item to this div. Why this div too is item under this box. And with that now, you can use it to create complex layout. So you can put one flex inside another flex, and you arrange them anyhow you want. Again, to inside this last item too, I can create another nested item and make sure that all those one now, they are not going to be side by side, they are not going to be on top of each other. So yeah, I can just go to that place, like that. So this p now, like that. So this item 3, what I will just do is to put span, which is going to be item 1, this is going to be item 2, item 3, and so forth, like that, depending on the number of items. So once I save this one, as you can see, it will not touch this one too, because those one now, they are nested. So in order for you to see them, or in order for them to be flex item too, you have to talk to that parent. So which we can give class to style it easily. This is going to be ff, like this. So going back to the page, then we just need to ff df, which is display flex, and as you can see now, but I don't want them to be side by side. I want them to be on top of each other. So flex direction is going to be column, but I want more space, so gap, because I want to force that space. So it's going to be 2 rem. But there's a problem. Can you see that all this one, they are aligned? This one is, is item 2 to its own parent. So let me use background color of green so that I can see. You can see that it's item in its own parent too. But what if you want all this one to now go to the center of it? No, we can do it. We just need to go to its own parent, which is going to be align items, is going to be center. So what this thing will do is that the one that is the highest there, the other one will always go to the center of it. So now can you see different elements, we are able to create all these items, and we can start using them to start doing something like this later on. As you can see, there is no more space. You see that gap has been closed. But once this thing expands, it has more space. It will distribute the space inside, because we are using space between. But if you want, you can use space at the edge. And you see the same thing that is going on here. See flex. All this thing that you see here is flex. So this is one item. Entire stuff here too is another item, because it have their own way of arrangement. You see that they are not side by side. All those ones are stacked on top of. So what you do when you are doing the layout, which is something we are going to do tomorrow, because that's another thing you need to learn. You need to know how to lay out elements in your HTML so that you can achieve that layout. So here now, this is a container which is holding everything here. But inside the container, you have the item for holding this image. You have another item for holding all this content. So this one now, it have the freedom to display any of this one anyhow you want. Like can display flex, can place it on top of each other, or you can place them side by side anyhow it's want, like that, which is what we are going to be starting with tomorrow like that. And the same thing here too is flex, that is going to, even though I use grid for this one, like that to do, because this one is crazy. As you can see, this one is kind of entering the inside, so I need to use grid here in order to do this one like that. But you are going to see how to do it. So once you see that it is grid that is going on there. But what is grid? We are going to be talking about that one when we need the grid like that. So where is the container? Because this thing is going to tell you what is going on there like that. Once we expand the stuff, where are you? As you can see, so that the line, all this line is just grid line. Can you see? It is grid. So the thing will tell you what is being used. If it is grid, it will show grid beside it. If it is flex, it will show the flex beside it. So, but it's grid that I use here so that I can be able to, shift all this in to this side. But this one is background here, depending on whether you're on mobile or you're on desktop, like that. So if you're on desktop, it's going to just move it by this side, which is something we've talked about before, like your background position in there like that. So expand this stuff, expand this in like that. So as you can see, so can you see background, but it's not at the top, this thing, it's close to the bottom side. So what you have to do there is to, can you see that the positioning, but I'm changing it based on the screen. So it's telling you that it's not using this one because somewhere I've already modified it, because when you're on this screen, that's when it will be. Again too, when on another particular screen, it needs to change it to another. So can you see now for this one position, it's now left, then this, because I need to use a definite value and like my own custom value. So I mentioned it. But if it is just normal CSS one, no, left is always by the edge. This one is right. So, but if you need to do your own custom stuff, then you can add it, and again some other tricks to just make it align to the place it's supposed to be like that. Again too, everything you're seeing here is flex. You can see this one too is flex. So there is a container here. So we have a container here like that. So inside the container, it has its own item, but that item too, it has its own nested item. Again, this is another item. This is another item like that. This is another item. Even this one sef, this is another container on its own, because of this thing at the bottom. Because no, that one now it did not go, it's on its own. So now this container outside is placing this one and this one on top of each other. But this one now is not placing what is inside it side by side. Again, to inside this one, that one too is placing them on top of each other. This one on top of each other, this one on top of each other. And that's how you do. You put one flex inside another one to achieve your layout. And we are going to work on this design tomorrow there like that. So where is the project? Project. Where's my project training? Then the design, that one that I said we're going to be starting with, which is the simplest one there. That's the QR code. So we have this QR code there. So design. So and this is what we'll be working on. And as you can see, the same design we have on desktop is what on the mobile. But that's not the way it's always going to be. Because most of the elements you want to display, it can't appear like that on small screen. So you need to change the arrangement. So as you can see, we have the background. Again, this and this and this, they are placed on top of each other. We're going to use our flex, and we're going to apply gap in between like that. And just simple stuff. But the next one there is going to be this product, whatever stuff. Where are you? Product preview. Is it this one? But that one now is not that simple. Yeah, as you can see, this one is not simple. So this one now, this is what we have for mobile. But when you get to desktop, can you see arrangement is different? So we need, this is what we now talked about, responsive design. So how do you change your design based on the screen that the user is using at that particular time to view your site? So the same site, but there's different view based on whether on your mobile or on the, like this one now. So this is how it's going to look like when you're on this screen. And if you go less than that, you see that things will change. But if you go to a bigger screen, we have enough space. They are now the same. So yeah, that will be all for the grid. It will come in another class, because that one is another class on its own, and it's not something we need right now. So we'll be talking about that one the time we need it there like that. So